TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift Stallion Golden Sense, a multiple Grade 1 winner and track record setter by Into Mischief, bidding for back-to-back wins in this year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Breeders' Cup alongside Joel Cunningham. I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, we have a lot to talk about because this is a show where we give our Breeders' Cup picks. A lot of these horses we've been following since the beginning of the year. You know, this is a very exciting time. Wish we were in California, but we're here in studio. We got to do all this work and give this research to the fans. Let's start off in the juvenile turf. You know, this is a race that's usually dominated by the Europeans. You think that'll happen again this year?
I think they will, John. I just think their turf racing is so much better than ours. And, you know, the horses that have some experience over there look like they have that talent when they come over. I mean, look at the Europeans in general. I mean, they don't compete in many of our dirt races. However, they've won at least 2 Breeders' Cup races every year dating back to 2007. And I know we've had some polytrack races that Ravens Pass won the Classic, obviously, one year. But they dominate the turf races, John, and I like them to continue that dominance this year. I rated War Envoy #1 in here for Coolmore, but he comes from way out of it. I actually like Commemorative. He's going to be my pick in here, John, at 8-1 morning line. He's 2 for 2. Juddmonte, good connections coming over. I just think that with his tactical speed from the inside that he can take to any race shape, and so I'm going to give Commemorative a shot in here on his upside.
All right, let's go ahead and move straight into the juvenile fillies turf. And tell me, do you like the Europeans in here as well?
I do, and I like Osila quite a bit coming over. And again, you know, you'll see a lot of Europeans in here, John. Lady Eli, I do think, is the best North American horse in here. I think she's going to be bet down. Osila is, 5-1 on the morning line in here, but a lot of people aren't really familiar with her form. I mean, she's won 3 of her last 4 have been stakes victories over there, and she ran a good 5th in a Group 1 over there. That was a very productive race, you know, with the top 3 finishers in there. Many of them coming back to win their next start. So I think she is definitely the class. She has the experience, and I think as long as she handles the left-hand turns, she's a class of the race.
All right, let's stay with the fillies, but let's get back on the dirt, and let's talk about the juvenile fillies. Who do you like in here?
You know, juvenile fillies, John, I really ended up on Conquest Eclipse in here. I just think she has the best overall profile. Angela Renee, who beat her last time, the Chandelier, is going to be your favorite probably again. But you know what? She got first run in the Chandelier. I think she got a better trip. Conquest Eclipse, you know, she's going to grind along. She's a big filly without a big move. But I think she's going to continually progress into that frame of hers, John. I like the way she's working up into this. I think Corey Nakatani has to put her in the race a little earlier because I don't think she has that finishing burst to run by him in here. But I just like her upside. Feathered's a horse that I really wanted to like in here. But she drew the rail. So she has to ship for a 3rd lifetime start or 4th lifetime start here. First out in New York, and then you draw the rail in a full field. It's really hard to imagine her getting a good trip.
All right, the next race I want to talk about, Joel, to me, this is one of the best races of the weekend, both Friday and Saturday, and that's the juvenile, man. This race really looks stacked with talent.
Very unfortunate defection with American Pharaoh. He was going to be my pick to go wire to wire in the race, John, but with him out, I do think it opens it up. Daredevil, you know, he had a daunting, drawing the 12 hole and having that other major speed presence. To me, I didn't like Daredevil in the race, but now it looks like he could at least carve out a better stalking trip from the outside in here. I do think Bob Baffert and some other horses have some speed in this race to be able to not give Daredevil easy going up front, and I do think that'll set it up for Carpe Diem. I like his versatility, so Carpe Diem on his upside. Versatility, being able to come from off the pace, I'll give him the edge in here. I'll pick Carpe Diem.
All right, let's switch over now to the sprint division. Let's start off with the turf sprint. Joel, tell me, who do you like in here?
You know, right now, this is the race, and again, what's interesting is the turf sprint is such a niche thing. It's hard to say your best bet is going to be in the turf sprint because unless they've gone down the hill and they're a specialist, this is a tough race to handicap for anybody. But I just think at the value and the price play, and we talked about last week, around 8-1, 10-1, whatever he's going to be, I think Undrafted is going to be ignored in here. So I'm going to give him the Twin Spires best bet of the day based on that value. Undrafted, Wes Welker, 6.5 furlongs. I think if you go back and look at his July Cup, that was against some of the best sprinters in the world. He ran excellent, and I think he's going to be even better at 6.5, 7 furlongs. That's kind of his niche. You know, on Belmont Stakes Day, I loved his performance in there. I believe it was in the Jaipur. I thought he was excellent that day. I just think he has so much ability and class at that distance that he's going to be ignored on the tote board. So I like Undrafted as a Twin Spire's best bet.
All right, let's move to the Filly and Mare Sprint. This is another race that's really stacked with talent. I mean, this is one of the best races of the weekend as well.
I think both the sprint races on dirt are wide open, John. I mean, completely wide open, and really, you could say that about the entire Breeders' Cup this year, as we've talked about, but particularly these sprint races. And when I look at the Filly and Mare Sprint, I have some question marks. Judy the Beauty, deserving favorite. She was a runner-up last year. Comes in fresh, but she's a little older longer in the tooth now.
Yep.
You know, is she going to be as good? You look at her numbers this year, and they're not as good as they were last year. So if you feel like she's vulnerable, Artemis Agriteria, I was expecting her to run better in the Breeders' Cup last year. She didn't ship and run well. You know, those connections don't ship and run well traditionally. So to me, she has some question marks in here. Lee Court is a filly that I'm going to pick on top here. Underrated connections, Josie Carroll, Melnick Stables. You know, Melnick sold a lot of their horses. They didn't sell her. Yeah. I think they know something here. I think she's a runner. You saw in the TCA last time out, she dominated a pretty good field. She's undefeated at 7/8. She has good tracking speed to put herself in a good spot and a good explosive finishing punch. I'm going to give up-and-coming filly Lee Court the edge in here.
All right, let's move to the sprint division. Again, on the dirt, and you said this one's wide open. Joel, there's a lot of horses in here. You got Secret Circle, you got Private Zone. There's some, interesting horses in here. Tell me, who do you like?
I think this is the toughest race, bar none, to handicap in the entire Breeders' Cup. I just really feel like Private Zone, he was our best bet last year, but he disappointed. What happened to him in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year? To me, I'll go back and watch that race. He didn't have any excuses. I mean, there was a pretty good duel up front, but the way he packed it in at the 8th pole, John, very disappointed in his performance. So while I think he's the best sprinter, I can't pick him off that performance last year. Rich Tapestry, a European, trying to rely on a European in a big field. I mean, he looked good in a 5-horse field last time out. Well, now he's in a full 14-horse field. Got to find his way. To me, I'm a little reluctant for him. Palace going on the road, a little reluctant there. Secret Circle doesn't look as good to me as he did last year, and he drew inside. It's wide open. So I'm going to go to Miko Margarita.
Wow.
I think with his current form right now, he showed he's not a grade 1 horse. But if you look at his improving numbers, you look at his current form, and you look at the fact that he likes to come from off the pace in a race that's inevitably going to get a ton of speed up front, should melt down, I think he's the best long shot in a race that's wide open. He's the Brisnet best long shot of the Breeders' Cup for me at 15-1, Miko Margarita.
All right, I can't argue with you there. I mean, it's like you said, it's wide open. All right, let's move now. We're going to go back to the turf division, and let's talk about the Filly and Mare turf. I know you've always liked Dank. Do you think she's going to get it done?
I do. She comes in fresh, and people want to question her form this year because she hasn't run in so long. That's pretty common in Europe. They know how to get them ready off the layoff. I'm not as concerned with Dank. All reports are she's looked great at Santa Anita. I just think she's the class of this race. I don't think Secret Gesture, who I think is number 2 in here, I don't think she's of Dank's caliber. She's already proven at Santa Anita she can handle left-hand turns in the American style of racing. So I give Dank the leg up in here. Watch out for Day at the Spa. I'm just saying, she looks like she's doing so good right now. I don't know if she can get a mile and a quarter, but if they leave her alone on the lead, she's a sneaky long shot for the Americans in here because all these Europeans want to come from off the pace. But I do think Dank is a class and she gets it done.
All right, let's move over to the turf. So far, you've given the hand to all the Europeans have taken your turf races. You think it's going to continue in the turf?
I think definitely. I think all 3 of these Europeans, maybe even 4. I think you can box these 4 Europeans and probably hit the exact and the trifecta. I just think they're that dominant, John, at a mile and a half. I think there's going to be enough pace in here. I like the fact that Flintshire and Telescope both drew inside. To me, the winner is going to be between these 2, Telescope and Flintshire. And while Telescope's been number 1 in our rankings, I'm actually going to give Flintshire the upper hand. I went back and watched a lot of his races. He ran against Sarisdale Eagles earlier this year, showed class there at a mile and a half when second him. I mean, that might be one of the best mile and a half turf horses in the world we've seen the last few years consistently. I think he has the class edge over Telescope. Telescope may have the upside, but right now Flintshire looked good coming off the plane. I'm going to give him the upper hand. Flintshire is going to win the turf.
All right, let's move now to the mile. This is a race I was disappointed. We're not going to see Wise Dan try to repeat in here. Tell me, who do you think is going to win the mile?
To me, the mile is wide open, too. I mean, this is a race, and when you talk about 2 of the toughest races in the entire year to win, the Breeders' Cup Sprint and the Breeders' Cup Mile, because from gate to wire, you have to be perfect. You run into any problems, I think it's tough to overcome unless you're special like Wise Dan is. So, Tornado, to me, he's the best active miler in the world that's in training right now. But to me, I don't know if I can take a short price on him. I'm going to go with Mustajib. Now, Mustajib's a Shadwell horse. He's a 3-year-old. He's up and coming. I've liked his last few performances. He had a little more tactical speed. I think he can kind of carve out his own trip, and he has an explosive turn of foot you expect from the Europeans. I wanted to like, obviously, Gate to Wire. I almost pulled the trigger there. I just have a feeling with Tourist and Sayad and some others in here that maybe it's going to be a little more legitimate pace than I originally thought. And I just think that I'm not sure if obviously can hold on the entire way with these Europeans coming at him. So I'm going to go with the slight upset with Mustajib.
All right, let's move now to the dirt mile. We see Golden Sense in here. He's going to try to be a back-to-back winner in this race. I know you say he's probably going to be the heaviest favorite of the day. You think he gets it done?
I think his rail draw is dangerous. Yeah, he's going to be the biggest favorite of the Breeders' Cup, period. I think the rail draw is dangerous because he has to break. I mean, if he gets any point to where they try to put him in the pocket and race ride him a little bit, it could be trouble for Golden Sense. But let's face it, from a class standpoint, he just towers over this field from class and speed figure standpoint. I have to pick Golden Sense if we're being honest and who we feel is going to win this race. He's your most likely winner. Now, if Vickers in trouble, duels Golden Sense into the ground, he breaks tardy or he gets a little eager there, I do think that there's some long shot potential. I mean, I think Tapiture's on top of his game, and I think Golden Ticket for 15 to 20 to 1 shot is a very good bet if you think there's going to be a fast pace.
All right, Joel, you know, it's interesting this year. We got the Breeders' Cup, the Friday race is actually on Halloween. So I thought for the Distaff and for the Classic, let's do something called Trick or Treat. Tell me, who do you think is going to be a horse that a lot of people are going to be tricked by in the Distaff? And then tell me, who do you like in this race?
Well, you know, I think your second, third choice in the Distaff is going to be Close Hatches and Iotapa. And I really question the form of both fillies coming in, you know, particularly Close Hatches. I mean, the way she ran last time out in the Spinster, John, has to be a concern. I mean, here's a filly that's brought her game to every racetrack, and now you're going to tell me she just didn't like Keeneland? You know, at least tell me it was a lung infection or she bled through Lasix. Give me some kind of excuse. I thought she looked good training, but I can't. If that's your final prep coming up to a race like the Breeders' Cup, and you're going to be the second choice, I think she's a trick. I think Iotapa is a little out of form. She's a trick. So in my opinion, the second, third choice, I want to stay away from in there. I think Untappable is, without question, your deserving favorite in here. But for me, at her price, I'm willing to take a little bit of a treat, a price play in here, and that's Stanwyck, our long shot last week. She can't win unless the pace melts down. I mean, she's not as good as some of these other fillies like Untappable on the speed figures and her back class. But if the pace melts down, she's not going to win by much. I think she can get up if she gets the right trip at 25 to 1.
All right, let's move now to the Classic. And let's do the same thing, trick or treat in here. Joel, this is a race that, you know, we saw a lot of the older horses fall off. The 3-year-olds are, you know, primed to take the stage. Tell me, who do you think's the trick and who do you think's the treat?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think a treat is Share Belief. I mean, I think he's certainly the favorite in here, deserving, likes him out on a quarter. This is essentially in his backyard. You know, for me, he's a horse that if he fires his best race, he's going to win the race. I mean, he's, to me, towers over this field, in my opinion. The problem is he had a tough race last time out. He's not a very big horse. We've been expecting to see some aggression from him for some time. You know, can he keep it going? To me, at his price at, you know, 6 to 5.75, 8 to 5, I'm willing to try to beat him, even though I know he's the best horse in here. You know, questions about toneless shipping, you know, even though I think he's the best mile and a quarter horse. I think Cigar Street's set up to run a big race, but is he quite as good now, older in his life? Is he really grade 1 caliber for this? I'm going to go with Candy Boy. I think he's the real treat in this race, John. I just have loved his races. You know, when you go back and look, they've been sneaky good. The West Virginia Derby, Pennsylvania Derby. He's either had wide trips, he's been compromised by pace. When he made the lead in the West Virginia Derby over Tapiture's, his ears went straight forward. And he shut it down. He passed Vickers in trouble. Ears went forward. Tapiture nailed him on the outside. He's tailor-made for a mile and a quarter. He needs to take another step forward. But if you're going to give me 20-something to 1 on Candy Boy, now, he needs a pace, too. He won't win if there's no pace. There's no question. But going a mile and a quarter, if Bayern goes, if Moreno goes, they run a legitimate pace, Candy Boy saves the ground. I do think with the step forward, Candy Boy is very alive at 25 to 1. He's the treat for me. If you had to give you a trick, I'm going to give you Bayern because I don't think he likes a mile and a quarter. I don't think he's going to get the distance, and he's going to be 6 to 1.
Candy Boy, Halloween, is it a hunch play? Or you really
it's
think
a Swami play, man. You know what? I didn't even realize that until you just brought it up, but But I'm telling you, John, I think there's a lot of talent there, and I think Candy Boy, Stanwick, I mean, there's two 25-to-1 shots in the two biggest Breeders' Cup races that I really think have big shots.
I know a lot of horses have defected from the Breeders' Cup, but there's a lot of exciting races. The fans will not be disappointed.
Oh, it's a great betting field this year.
All right, thank you, Joel. Thanks for all your help, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap this year's Breeders' Cup.